So I was excited going into Backrooms. I was familiar enough with everything going into it. I was introduced to the concept of liminal horror through a Super Eye Patch Wolf video, and through that, learnt about the Backrooms. And prior to the film coming out, I watched a few videos. I haven't went fully into the Backrooms lore, but I dabbled. I dipped my toe into it. Plus, also just the trailer, the first trailer really piqued my interest. I'm always excited for seeing a new horror film in the cinema, and I get even more excited if the film looks good, and the film looked good. And the way I stopped there made it seem like I was going to go, and I didn't like it. No, I did very much so like Backrooms. Like this a lot, actually. It's an interesting one. I think there's a lot in this that I'll be interested in how it ages, and I'll be interested in what the legacy of Backrooms will be. I think it's going to have longevity. I know it's a very stupid and weird thing to just say, being like, I think this is going to last a while. I'm not saying it's going to be a timeless classic, but I definitely think it's going to prompt rewatches, and prompt just continuous people going back to it, I think. And I don't think in a way of like it's confusing, because I don't think it is confusing. I think it is quite for what you get from the film, it's very surface level isn't the word. What you see is what you get, kind of thing. But the whole film does have this like tone of there's more under the surface. There's more to this. But you don't need to discover any of that to have any enjoyment of the film at all, I don't think. I think you can like the film as it is without trying to discover more. It's not it doesn't require you to discover the themes of the film in order to enjoy it. I think what really is the strength of Backrooms, like this film, is it's a phenomenally done, like, well building thing. I think this is my kind of well building. For anyone, what was it? Oh, it was the Intermission podcast. It was the Spirited Away episode of Intermission podcast. Robbie and I discussed our relationships with what kind of world building we like, between hard world building and soft world building. And I'm more of a soft world building kind of guy, where we don't just get like we don't need to like do homework, or like not necessarily homework. The property doesn't need to be like, and then this and then this and then this and then this and then this. We just kind of get shown stuff. And that's what Backrooms very much so is. I mean, there is a moment in the film, again, I talk spoilers in these, so if you haven't seen Backrooms and you want to see Backrooms, stop watching now. There is a moment in the film where, like, Clark, played by Chiwetel Ejiofor, is sat explaining stuff to his therapist, Renata Reinsfer? But yeah. And that's cool and interesting. But there's never a point where, like, the world, like, the concept of Backrooms is like, okay, now we need to explain it all. And I mentioned this when I talked about Obsession as well, about how, like, I love, like, a lot of horror films recently, they kind of fall into, like, the trap of, like, we have something really interesting happening, and then the film almost is like, shit, we need to explain this all now. And then immediately makes everything less interesting. Whereas I said Obsession doesn't do that. And Backrooms also doesn't do that. So I hope that with the success of these two films, kind of back to back, that it's going to kind of open people to be like, oh, maybe we don't need to explain it. I think you need to have an understanding of what you're telling, And I definitely think Kane Parsons knows exactly what he's telling here. But he also knows that, like, Kane Parsons clearly understands the world and the point of the film he's making. But we as the audience don't need to fully know that. You know what I mean? And I think that plays a lot into the horror of the film. And I'll get to that now, actually. I think... I don't know, like, there's... I'll admit, I was... Struggling's not the word. I was more so curious and interested for a long period of time as opposed to actually being scared. I watched the first few videos of Backrooms I've watched. I wasn't massively scared. I wasn't feeling any fear or any tension. The film wasn't, and the film for a while wasn't giving me that either. I don't really find someone walking around in a big open desolate location scary on its own. And for a while, just seeing Clark walk around the back rooms, I wasn't feeling at all fearful, or I wasn't feel tense or nervous. I was more so like, what's happening here? Again, I was curious. I was fascinated, which I think is still, it has its merit for that reason. But even like at the points of like, there's the section when where Clark gets the people who work for him and the camera guy to go down in like that spot with the camera, and he's like looking around and stuff. Like, I don't know, like I wasn't feeling scared at all. Just watching it, and even when he got like pulled in and dragged through, it's like I wasn't feeling. There was no fear being had, but there was like this, again, as I said, there was intrigue, and there was like, what's happening here? I was certainly not bored by the film at all. I was just kind of more like, when am I going to be on board with this in terms of a fear perspective and an intensity? And what I will say is there's a specific point towards the end of the film where Renata, her character, is running away from the big old captain. Again, as I said, spoilers. If you're this far, I've warned you. There you go. But that giant ass fucking... It's played by the guy who was in Alien Romulus. And it's this really warped thing of Clark as the captain. And there's that once, and it's the sections of when she turns and she's running away from him, but she turns and sees just this tall, lanky, uncanny combination of human and not stumbling like towards her. And again, not running, but just walking and getting closer and closer. That gave me the absolute heebie-jeebies. There was something about that just made not my spine crawl, like my rib cage crawl. I don't know if that's a new kind of fear. Like people got that spine tinglingly creepy. I'm like, oh no. To me, that was like torso tingling creepy. I felt it like there, like in the center of me, just, and it's that, again, it's the bit where she is up in like the main store bench, she's trying to get out, and then she turns and she sees, and there's a wide shot of the captain just walking up and not running towards her, but just progressively getting closer and closer and closer, and then she's walking around and trying like back it up, and then he's following her. That was really truly the only moment that I felt absolute fear and absolute like just that's a nightmare to me. Just an absolute like, and it like made me like think about like Like, that made me feel like I was, like, within a scene in Silent Hill 2. Like, that made me feel like I was going through a Pyramid Head boss kind of thing, which just, like, I don't know, there's something about it, and hearing the sound design and not making a big action hoo-ha about it, but just kind of like, again, wide shots. And again, I think that's one thing I can praise about this film is the cinematography and the use of the wide angles. Like, there's a lot, man. Like, most of this film is wide angle and shot that way. And I think that really adds to just this spacious, uncanny feeling. Like, the film's not claustrophobic at all. But it almost makes it feel, I don't know, more alive. Like, the film feels lived in, while feeling very lonely. Like, Backrooms is very much so a film that, like, I mean, it kind of is a really perfect concept for horror within loneliness. And I feel like there's definitely something with Renata's character that I didn't quite. I think there's more to look upon. I've only seen the film once, by the way, so I haven't overanalyzed. I haven't went back and watched it yet. But yeah, no, it really was like. Yeah, but anyway, what was I saying? Oh yeah, the cinematography. The cinematography was gorgeous. It was shot by, I forgot his name, but he's worked with Osgood Perkins. He was the DP for The Monkey, and he was a part of like the camera department for like Long Legs, and I think Keeper as well. I don't think he's shot Keeper. I think he was just part of the camera department. But either way, he's a Oz Perkins kind of cinematographer, and I love Oz Perkins' visual style, and I think that was really shown here as well. Again, I can't say anything bad about the cinematography. It was gorgeous. It was everything on a technical front, if I'm being honest. This film is gorgeously done technically, on a technical level, and also on a conceptual level. I think there's been a massive hole within cinematic horror for an interesting world, like just a really like fascinating horror world, and horror world building, and I think Backrooms really does fill that hole. The film, someone can say it feels incomplete, and what I will say is, like, when the ending happened, I did feel caught off guard, not in like a whoa, but whoa, I can't believe that's how they ended it, but in a way like, oh, that was the ending. That was my thought, and immediately once the credits hit, I was like, oh, that's how it ended. And I knew going into this film, like, this wasn't going to be an end all. And I knew Kane Parsons' whole thing was like, he still wants to carry on making the YouTube series, and he's looking upon the film as just another chapter within that. Which is also amazing, the fact that you can still go into this film without having any prior knowledge of Backrooms. The film does, I mean, because the film follows the perspective of two characters who are new to the Backrooms lore. And to them, they are discovering the Backrooms for the first time. So in theory, you as an audience member are seeing it through their point of view, and you can be discovering the Backrooms for the very first time as well. But also, what makes it really cool is, obviously, you could watch this film and then go and watch the YouTube series, and more layers could be added to it. So I knew but I knew that like that was going to be the case with Backrooms. And I also know that Kane Parsons has an end in sight for Backrooms. As far as I'm aware, I'm sure he said, like, his ideal scenario would be to continue the YouTube series and then end it all with like a limited like streaming series, like a Netflix or like a HBO, like one of those kinds of things. So I knew for a fact that we weren't necessarily going to get a resolution with the film. But But it felt very much so like the film almost didn't feel like it had a 3-act structure. I felt the first 2 acts, and I felt like we were approaching the start of a 3rd act, like we were getting involved in the start of a 3rd act, and then it ended. And I don't necessarily mean that as a bad thing, and I'm very well aware, like, if I wasn't already interested in the film itself, I would have been really annoyed at this ending. And I can understand if someone is watching this film and they're not on board or interested in the film entirely. The ending's going to piss people off. That's what's going to happen. But from my personal perspective, I was already interested in the film I was watching. That even though the ending kind of just happened, I was left more like, okay. I now want to go back and watch it, knowing that that's how the film's going to end. And I love, like, again, while we're on the topic of, like, the world building of all, I love the, again, I'm not sure, I believe this is a new addition to the Backrooms lore. Again, I don't know all of it. But from my knowledge, the fact that the Backrooms is it's almost like a memory. It's a space of misremembered things, which leans into the uncanny. Although I'm not necessarily fearful of liminal spaces, like that's not a scary thing to me, the uncanny definitely does fall into a fearful factor for me. So when I'm seeing these like almost props of people that look like glitched humans, there's something so entrancing. Like there's something like that really pulls you into it. And I also do think it really helps that like it's all done practically. I'll get into that in a moment. But like the lore and like how it ends with Renata's character, it almost feels like a big warped AI generated world. And I'm not sure if that's what Kane Parsons is going for with the Backrooms, if he is trying to go for like a sort of meta commentary on generative AI. I don't know. But it certainly can be read that way, how the space that they fall in, it's not necessarily mystical, it is a part of the real world. Which is what I mean. Oh my god, it's so... I could go on, man, in terms of thinking about this. I'm not necessarily reviewing it. But it's like, it's just... Oh no, it's so fascinating to me. It's such a cool thing to have within horror as a genre. And I think what adds to it is the fact that the sets are built. The Backrooms was built. I don't know how much of it was actually practical in the sense of like, I feel like there's a section of where it's like it's like a big tall, like it goes down forever almost. I'm like, surely there must be like a green screen or a blue screen element to that to just extend it. But I don't know. It could have been already practically done. Either way, just seeing it all in that way was so like, I don't know, made it so much more entrancing. And if I'm being honest, as of right now, if this doesn't at least get a nomination for production design, then what are we even doing here? So with all that, like having an interesting point of view from storyline and concept and technical, one more thing I need to mention as well, like the score is amazing. I know Kane Parsons co-composed. I can't remember the other composer's name. But it's such a good score. I've been listening to it independently, and obviously there's a creepy element to it, but a lot of the score isn't a horror score. A lot of it is more like trying to set an atmosphere. Again, almost like a Dead Space, but sonically. Like the score itself feels like, oh, this is a Dead Space, a liminal space, but audibly. it's cool. It's really cool. Again, using more so mundanity as the unsettling horror, as opposed to having things going, and all that stuff. All that is great. Again, conceptually and technically, the film is outstanding. Where it lands not as investing is a lot. Again, I feel like the performances are fantastic. I think Tueta Ejiofor and Renata Reinsve, I can't remember. I'm sure I'm going to know how to pronounce the name sooner or later. We're all fantastic. I think Tueta Ejiofor especially is really good in this film. He brings a lot to it. I don't think the script itself brings a lot for character depth. The script is very much so focused on the themes and the concept and the world it's building and how the characters in that world exist in it and how they react and interact to it, which all works very well. But I feel like there might be from my point of view, I feel like I would have had a bit more investment in the film if there was a bit more depth given to the characters individually. I might catch things on rewatch, but on an initial watch, there wasn't that much. It was more so I was like, all right, I'm also just curious what they're going to do. Like, all right, go through the wall. Let's go through the back rooms. How we advance in the plot, as opposed to like, oh, I really feel for Clark, or like, oh, I could understand from Mary's perspective why she's the characters are performed by excellent actors. When if they were played by less talented actors, the characters would just be more so living props as opposed to people living in a world, if that makes any sense. But overall, I really like Backrooms. It's something different for cinematic horror. It's a welcoming inclusion for it all. I'm excited to see the impact that this film has on the genre and on filmmaking in general. It's exciting. It's an exciting film to exist. And I'm so happy that it does exist. And I'm so happy that I watched it. And I look forward to watching again. And I believe that is my full thoughts initially on Backrooms. What did you all think of the film? And what did you think about my thoughts on the film? If you want to engage in such conversation, comment below. Let me know. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like, give it a share. Subscribe for more stuff like this. Link is also in the description below for the Crazy Stupid Kino Instagram page. And till next time, I shall see you later.